Who will win the AFC South in 2023? What's going on, BLV? It's Mitch here to preview and predict the AFC South for 2023. The surprises, the disappointments, and go through each team, each roster, give you an in-depth breakdown of the division entering this season. If that sounds good, you know what to do. Gronk, spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for the rest of my NFL division predictions, breakdowns, my preview of every team in the NFL entering 2023. Let me know in the comments what you believe will happen in the AFC South, the disappointments, the surprises, what will take place in the division that everyone's saying is the weakest in the AFC. Do you believe that? Will there be teams that no one sees coming from this division make the playoffs and make a run? Let me know if there's any dark horses you see coming from this division. But that's exactly right, guys. This is the division that everyone is saying it stinks. It's not in the class of the AFC. It belongs in the NFC. It's nowhere close to the AFC East or the AFC North. And people might have a point with that one. But that being said, it means there's a lot more unpredictability that could take place. There's some young football teams in this division that could really be on the rise. There's a couple teams that I would expect to be at the top of this division, but you never really know what's going to happen. The Tennessee Titans are the counted out underdog. The Jacksonville Jags are for everybody that breakout team in 2023. What will take place? Let's waste no more time. Let's get to it. Let's go. Let's begin with the Houston Texans, a very young football team with a new quarterback in CJ Stroud, a new head coach in DeMeco Ryans. That being said, I know many of you Texans fans, and you expect improvement from the last couple of years. There is no doubt about it. You need some wins. Not calling for the playoffs, not calling for 8, 9, 10 wins. But if you could get that, I mean, you guys would love it. I know you would. But that being said, if you could just get out of the basement, it would be nice to see for the Houston Texans. And with young, promising quarterback play, that would be even better. So for the Texans, their expectations are to be a little bit better than the last couple of years, to see good things from their franchise young quarterback in CJ Stroud of Ohio State, who I was a big fan of and I thought should have went first in this draft. And DeMeco Ryans, as a leader of men, as a head coach, as a guy that can build a culture, is that all on the rise? How do these young players perform, like Derek Stingley and Will Anderson and Green and all these guys that you've spent premium draft picks on in recent seasons? That is what the Texans season is all about. It's not so much about making the playoffs or doing all that, although that would be fantastic. It's more about finding out if you guys have the pieces for the future to potentially be that team in the AFC South in short order, because the Texans have set themselves up here with their last couple of drafts where in a year or two, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the best team in the AFC South. So let's take a look at where the Texans rank across the board, offensively, defensively, in numerous categories entering this season. So I have them with quarterback number 27, obviously a rookie that's never played an NFL real snap. We've seen him in the preseason a little bit. I felt like he struggled against my Patriots, but he bounced back pretty well in the second matchup. We're about to see, I'm recording this on Sunday, and he's about to play Sunday night, I believe, in week 3 of the preseason. But CJ Stroud is a guy that I think has enough composure, enough experience, and enough of the fundamentals in terms of game awareness and intelligence, as well as great accuracy and arm strength, that he can be a decent rookie quarterback. I'm not going to say he's going to be great. I still think he has to learn the speed of the NFL. I think he's going to have to learn to play without super talent across the board on offense, and being the guy that's kind of underwhelmed in that regard because he's going to be dealing with some of the worst receiver talent in the NFL this year. So I view CJ Stroud as a guy that I actually ranked as the highest of the rookies entering this year. I have him above a couple of the veterans that I would rather have for this season, of course. So this is my ranking entering this year. He could rise, definitely on this list. Coaching ranks. Number 30 for DeMeco. We've never seen him take the head coaching spot and be successful, so there's a lot of question marks. That being said, there are only 3 new head coaches this year, and I ranked DeMeco Ryans as my favorite of the bunch, which is why he's at number 30. Offensive line rank 21. I think they have a good offensive line. I think Texans fans would argue this should be higher. I think the offensive line on paper is really nice. I don't think they've exactly shown it yet. I think last year they still weren't great on the offensive line in numerous metrics. And I feel like this year they have a chance to really break out. So I'm still waiting for that breakout. That being said, they have a very good tackle duo led by Laramie Tunsil. And they have Shaq Mason added to the mix, second round pick at center added to the mix, and a first round pick from a year ago that they expect to very much improve after a rough rookie year. Now back to the coaching rank real quick. I will say about D'Amico Ryans, really like the defensive game plans and the adjustments he's able to make on that side of the ball. Offensive rank, I have them at 31. What's bugging me about the Texans is I don't love their receiving core. I don't think they have enough upper echelon talent around their rookie quarterback on the receiving standpoint. And I just think with a rookie, it's going to be hard to elevate with an unknown coordinator, unknown receiving core. It's really hard to have a productive offense with a rookie quarterback. Roster rank, I have at 26, which I think is a little bit higher than in recent years. Secondary rank, I think this is maybe their strongest unit on their football team. A lot of people would say it's the offensive line, but I really like the secondary. You guys let me know what you think. Jalen Petrie, Jimmy Ward, Derek Stingley, Desmond King, Thomas. The list goes on. Defensive line rank 27. I think they have better defensive linemen than before. Sheldon Rankins, Will Anderson added to the mix this year, but it's still not great. I mean, it's still not upper echelon for sure, and it has a lot to prove, right? Will Anderson has to prove he can be that dude. Jerry Hughes is getting older. We need to see more from... I do like the interior duo. I will say Collins and Rankins is their best interior duo they've had in a few years. Defensive rank overall is 25th. I don't think they'll be one of the worst defenses in football. I think D'Amico will help that. I think the draft picks and the pickups will definitely help them elevate their floor defensively, but I don't think they have much of a ceiling either. Like, I think Will Anderson would have to go off. I think that the young guys would have to really elevate their game, like Jalen Petrie and Derek Stingley, to really take off as a defense. I could see them maybe flirting with the top 20, but I wouldn't see it going crazy higher. All right, so let's take a look at the offense this year for the Houston Texans. You've got Collins, who I would look at as the prototypical number one wide receiver for this team. If there is going to be a number one receiver for this team that you would look at as a guy that's outside the numbers, is big, is fast, he should be that guy, and we've been waiting for Nico Collins to be the breakout guy for quite some time. Robert Woods is the number 2 wide receiver. He is a veteran. I think he doesn't have much gas left in the tank, and honestly, I could see both John Mechie and Tank Dell surpassing him on the depth chart later in the season as Robert Woods kind of runs out of gas. He just doesn't have a lot of speed or athleticism left in the tank. We saw that in Tennessee last year. Tank Dell has looked incredibly promising. He was one of my favorite guys to watch in the draft this year at wide receiver, and he's shown a lot of flashes in training camp and the preseason. That is good news for a team that needs a number 1 receiver. That being said, he's very small, and he's more of a slot receiver. Laramie Tunsil and Howard at tackle, as we discussed. Green and Mason at guard. Scruggs at center, a second-round pick. Expecting good things out of him. Shaq Mason isn't quite New England Shaq Mason anymore, but he's still pretty good. Can Howard take another step forward? That would be nice. Dalton Schultz might be actually the guy that leads this team in targets for CJ Stroud. Dameon Pierce is an absolute monster. I would say he's the best player on this offense from a skill standpoint. Devin Singletary is a decent backup. Nothing special, though, as a pickup from the Buffalo Bills. Moving to the defensive side of the football for the Houston Texans. There's some nice new names on here. You've got Rankins, you've got Anderson, you've got Perryman, you've got Ward. Those guys are veterans or rookies that will make an impact. Perryman, I think, is an improvement at the linebacker position, especially when it comes to the run game. Texans have struggled to stop the run in recent history. I think Perryman will help them do that. Will Anderson should help them get to the quarterback. I'm not the biggest Will Anderson guy in the world, as you can tell. I think he was overdrafted, but he was super productive at Alabama, knows how to play this sport, should be productive right away. Collins and Rankins, both good players. I think Collins was extremely close to making my top 32 interior defensive lineman. Rankins is a solid player, had one of his best years in a while with the Jets, but the question is, he's now going to be like an every down starter like he was with the Saints, where he wasn't playing as well without Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers beside him. It made him a better player, so will he still be the same player in Houston? King, Nelson, and Stingley at cornerback. I think Desmond King had a great year last year. Can he continue that at the nickel position? Can Derek Stingley be the number one corner for this team? Big question mark. He was pretty good when he played last year, but needs to be better. I mean, when you look at Sauce and you look at Stingley, there was a big gap there. Jimmy Ward and Petrie. Ward's an absolute beast. Love that addition for D'Amico's defense as a leader for a young defense. And then Jalen Petrie is one of my favorite young safeties in the league. Can do it all. Great playmaker. Great near the line of scrimmage. Love to see that. So that's the Houston Texans offense and defense. As you guys can see, I'm speaking pretty glowingly about this team. I think they have a lot of young talent that is promising. That being said, it's going to take some time. I think with a rookie quarterback, you're going to have games where you really struggle on offense. The offensive line, I think, should be pretty good in the run game. We'll see how they look in the pass game. I think the offense, I'm intrigued to see how the new scheme looks. I know it's supposed to be like a Kyle Shanahan approach. How does that fit with CJ Stroud as more of a pocket passer? Are they able to get the most out of the pocket drop back passing game? I love the play action stuff I've seen in preseason so far. And my biggest question mark about the team is who's stepping up at wide receiver and helping CJ Stroud be successful. I think Dameon Pierce has a big year on the ground. Defensively, I just think they're a lot of solid with not a lot of spectacular. And that's why I feel like they'll be a middling unit, maybe, just like in both pass and run defense. I don't think they have any spectacular players unless we get breakouts from those draft picks in recent years. But I haven't been sold on some of those guys. So the Texans record for me, I've got them going 5-12 this season. I wanted to push it to 6-11. I just couldn't with the toughness of the AFC. The ceiling I could see at 8-9. I could actually see the most promising year for the Texans, and 5-12 would be a promising year for the Texans in recent past. That's more wins than Deshaun Watson had last time he was the quarterback. I think it speaks to the depth of the roster and the amount of solid players they have. They just don't have a lot of elite. You're also dealing with a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach. It's going to be a tough season in terms of that development, but it's going to be a fun season. I think it's going to be a lot more fun to watch. I think there's going to be a lot more progress for the Houston Texans franchise. My floor is 3-14, which is basically what you've been doing the last couple of years. And I'm going to take the under on the 6.5. I just think the AFC is too difficult. The schedule is tough. The AFC South is weaker, but I would say that overall, when you're a rookie quarterback in the toughest conference with a bunch of elite quarterbacks and a bunch of good defenses, it's going to be hard to win a lot of games here. So I like CJ Stroud. It's just going to be a really tough experience in year one, in my opinion. So that is my opinion on the Texans. You guys let me know what you think of Houston this year. Moving to the next team, we got the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, probably one of the most disrespected teams entering 2023. That being said, they do have question marks about the team. The team wants to replace Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Is this his last year? Probably. Will Levis was drafted just to indicate what they feel about Ryan Tannehill. The offensive line is the weakest it's been in years. There's a bit of a transition for this roster. That being said, they signed DeAndre Hopkins, which is a lot of fun and should bring a lot of excitement to this offense. They really missed a number one wide receiver last year. Can he be that guy? Treylon Burks injured to start the year, but he could also be a number one wide receiver. I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the year if he was their go-to guy. Chig is a good, promising player too. And they've got a really good defense led by an awesome head coach who knows how to win games in the clutch. So the Tennessee Titans expectations this year, I would say from the public and from the media, I would say the Titans are a team that a lot of people think are going to really decline. And I mean like really decline, like win like 5-4 games. Like I think a lot of people think the Titans suck. And I don't think that's accurate. My expectations would be the Titans should be a pretty mediocre team, but they have a chance if things break right to win the division and to make the playoffs. We've seen this team in the past overcome expectations, outdo expectations. Ryan Tannehill, I think, is better than he's given credit for. I think the defense is a lot better than it's given credit for. And I feel like Mike Vrabel is just a tough guy to count out. So those are the expectations. And overall, an interesting team because I feel like Titans fans think they're better than the public does. And I think the public thinks they're a lot worse than I think they are. So going to the ranks for the Tennessee Titans, you're going to indicate that this is an interesting team. Like they're kind of all over the map. They have some elite units, they have some mediocre units, and they have some bad units. So looking at it, the quarterback rank is number 19, coaching rank is number 5. So Ryan Tannehill I have at 19. I could argue anywhere from about 15 to 22 would be the range for me for Ryan Tannehill. He's played at times near a top 10 quarterback in his career, so if he were to play there again, it wouldn't surprise me that much. I just think he's on the downside of his career. Coach, I think Mike Vrabel is the strength of this team. I think his ability to lead this team, his ability to get his team ready, and I think the biggest thing Mike Vrabel brings to the table that's advantageous for this football team is his ability to manage situations in games. He is so good at that, and I think he might be the best at that in football, maybe even better than Bill Belichick. Offensive line rank is 32. I think on paper, they have the worst offensive line entering the NFL season this year. That being said, Tennessee has done a good job over the years of building and coaching their offensive line. Offensive rank, 29th. This was before they got DeAndre Hopkins, to be fair. I'd probably rank them a few spots higher. The roster rank, 16th. They're pretty mediocre, right in the middle of the NFL roster. Secondary is 18th. They have a lot of young players that are promising, but a lot of them have failed to break out. What is it? I don't know what to say there. The secondary, though, they added Sean Murphy-Bunting, really like the safety duo, and I think they're a better unit than last year. Defensive line, I think, is absolutely elite. They have the capacity to dominate any team up front with pass rush or run defense. They were the best run defense in football last year. And the defense, I think, is a top 10 unit. They could rank anywhere inside that top 10. Last year, they were underwhelming defensively from a statistical standpoint, because of their injuries in the secondary and their injuries in their pass rush, which really hurt them, I think, in the long run. But ultimately, this is a team that was a Ryan Tannehill injury away from potentially being a playoff team and the AFC South winner for, I think, like the second or third year in a row. So Tennessee has been competent, and I think a lot of people overlook that. Now, looking at their offense, let's talk about it. So the offense looks a lot better when you add DeAndre Hopkins to this wide receiving core, because I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins is what he used to be, but even if he's just like 80, 70% of what he used to be, it makes this receiving core and this offense a lot more dynamic and a lot more diverse and balanced. I mean, the passing game has real threats now with Hopkins, Burks, Westbrook, Akine, Phillips. The running game, of course, Derrick Henry. Love the draft pick of Spears, by the way. He was one of my favorite running backs in the draft. I think I had him third. I think he was my third favorite running back outside of the guys that went in the first round. Okonkwo is the tight end who has a lot of upside. Great athlete. He's kind of like Jonnu 2.0. The offensive line, I like the addition of Hubbard, the veteran at right tackle. I think Daniel Brunskill is a pretty good, versatile player from San Francisco. Brewer will see his first season at center, I think. But they like him. I know that. They like him. Peter Skoronski can play tackle or guard. He's a first-round pick. They spent his first-round pick on him, and he should be very solid right away. Andre Dillard is probably the biggest question mark on here. Like, if he can be good, like, he was a first-round talent. He can be a good player. And if he is, all of a sudden, this offensive line is actually kind of good. So that could determine it. But I haven't really loved what I've seen from the preseason tape from the offensive line. I thought they looked pretty bad against New England. That being said, New England has an elite pass rush, and elite defensive line. But, I mean, I don't know. I think they'll still be able to run the ball. I think the offensive play callers change and offensive scheme change will be very much needed. And I think if Burks can get healthy and develop, and Okonkwo can do the same, and Hopkins can just be Hopkins, this offense could actually surprise a lot of people and win a lot of games for this team, because the defense is the strength of this team. When you talk about that front seven, you've got Danico Autry, you've got Jeffrey Simmons, Tart, Landry. I saw Autry was absolutely dominating the Patriots' second team defense in the preseason, and I was like, get him out of the game. It's not even fair. But Jeffrey Simmons is a stud, the best player on this defense, in my opinion, and Kevin Byard is not a slouch whatsoever, but Simmons is a stud. Tart is one of the best run defenders in football, in my opinion. Harold Landry comes back from injury as a 12-sack type of guy. Danico Autry plays everywhere, inside, outside, great edge setter, all of it. They have also my guy Off the edge, Arden Key, who's not even on here, but he's going to be a really good rotation rusher. I think this defensive line is going to take a lot of people by surprise of how good they are. Sean Murphy-Bunting is SMB, if you're wondering. I know him as SMB as a Bucks fan from the Brady days, of course. But Sean Murphy-Bunting has been a really solid player. He didn't get as much playing time last year as he probably should have. Late last year, he was playing really well, and he typically plays better on the outside than on the nickel position. In times of his career, he's played in the nickel, and he hasn't played that well outside of the Super Bowl run. Christian Fulton, at times, has been really awesome, but at other times, kind of, disappointing. So can he be more consistent? McCreary is very feisty and very competitive. I'm just not sure if he's great, but he should take a step forward in year 2. Al-Shaair was just screaming off the screen when I was watching him in that preseason game, and he's going to replace David Long Jr. I think that's an upgrade for you guys. Kevin Byard and Hooker are an awesome duo, and Byard's one of the best safeties in football. Hooker's not a slouch either. He's a pretty good player, probably he has the capacity to be a Pro Bowl caliber safety, but he's been a little inconsistent. So that's the offense. The defense, I'm pretty glowing about this team. Again, I like the Titans. I like cheering for them. I like the style of play that they play with. I like their toughness. I like their grit. I like the way Mike Vrabel coaches this team. I just have a lot of respect for them. That being said, the record for them is an 8-9 record this season. I could see a 9-8 make the playoffs, maybe win the division if Jacksonville doesn't live up to the hype. But currently I have them second in the division. Their ceiling's 11-6. If DeAndre Hopkins plays well, if their offensive line figures it out, Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry, Treylon Burks is decent, and their defense plays at a top 10 level, hey, this team could win 10, 11 games, and I wouldn't be surprised. Their floor, though, is 5-12. I think the situation where people are saying, the offensive line stinks, Tannehill is going to be under pressure, that's my biggest worry about this team. I think they're going to be really solid on defense. I think they're going to run the ball effectively. My worry is when they get in drop-back passing situations, will they be able to succeed? And I just don't know. I think it's going to be hit and miss, which is why I have them at 8-9, not 5-12 or 11-6. But I would probably lean towards taking the over here at 7.5. A lot of people are going to take the under, but I just can't deny Mike Vrabel, and I'm not putting my money against a Mike Vrabel team. I haven't seemed to get, the Titans right. I don't seem to get them right very consistently, but I don't want to deny them any longer. I want to be on the positive side of history, so I'm going to be positive with the Tennessee Titans entering 2023. That is my preview for the Titans. I think they can win this division. I think they're underrated right now, overlooked right now, but they've got to stay healthy. Tannehill's got to stay upright, and that offensive line has to perform, or they might be in for a bad, disappointing season. Moving on to the next team is the Indianapolis Colts. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to Gronch spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for more NFL previews, division previews, just like this. Also, let me know in the comments if you prefer the uploaded version or the live version of the previews. Thank you guys so much for watching the previews so far. The Indianapolis Colts are the third team on our division rankings. I'm going to be honest with the Colts fans out there. I think this is going to be a tough year for you. I think this is going to be a learning season. I think this is a transitional year. You have a new head coach. You have a new quarterback. There's two teams in this division that have that same deal. I think the Texans have built a roster that can withstand more injuries to the top end guys because the Texans don't have as many superstars as the Colts have. The Colts have also been dealing with the Jonathan Taylor dilemma, I would call it, a fiasco. You could also call it just a distraction overall. And I think that is something to be aware of. That being said, Colts still have a lot of talented players that are worth watching this season, and I think could make them an interesting season and an interesting team if Richardson can live up to the potential that he possesses physically. So let's take a look at the ranks for the Colts, which overall, man, a lot lower than I would have thought in a lot of categories, just looking at the roster. Maybe I'm just too low on this team overall. But let's take a look at it. So quarterback, obviously, you've got a rookie who's never played, so he's ranking at number 30. Although I will say I ranked him above two veterans just because of his ability to run and be an athlete. I think he gives you a floor in that regard on offense. Coaching rank, number 31, Shane Steichen is a rookie coach, never coached before, so I can't really rank him that high. I had him as the second highest rookie head coach behind DeMeco Ryans. Offensive line rank, 19. I don't think they're very good. I don't think they're bad. I love Smith, and I like Quentin Nelson. I think Quentin Nelson overall is a little overrated. The offensive line as a whole, though, was really bad last year for the most part, and they need a bounce-back season. Offensive rank, 30. Mostly because I think Richardson's going to struggle to pass as a rookie quarterback. I think that's going to take a lot of time, sort of like Justin Fields. So I feel like it's going to be a really one-dimensional offense. I think there's going to be times where they're able to run the ball and run it really effectively, and especially if Jonathan Taylor's playing. And I think that's going to allow them to score some points and move the ball. But I think at other times when teams are stopping the run, they're going to really struggle. Roster rank 30, which seems low, but when I did the math, it did kind of check out. They have a lot of weaknesses on this roster this year, more so than the past, which is why I say it's a transitional year. Chris Ballard and this front office didn't choose to bring back veterans. They didn't choose to sign any veterans really to bring in and to carry this team over to mediocre land instead of kind of bottoming out this year. Secondary is number 31 after losing their best corner in Rodgers to suspension. Stephon Gilmore is gone as well. That's a huge loss. And then they also lost Rodney McLeod, who played really well last year. Secondary, 31. Defensive line, 18th. I think they've got a really good interior. I'm not sure about the edge position. Epikam's decent, but he's more of like a good run defender and good rotation player than he is like a good pass rusher. And Kwity Paye has been okay. Hasn't quite lived up to the hype, but he could have maybe his best year of his career this year. Defense rank 27. I'm not a huge fan of Gus Bradley's scheme. I just think it's very vanilla and very predictable, and without elite talent, it tends to suffer. So let's take a look at the offense depth chart. Pittman, Pierce, McKenzie are the receivers. Also got Josh Downs out of North Carolina, the rookie wide receiver. Then you've got an offensive line. Raymond is expected to take a step forward this year as the left tackle. Played pretty well, according to PFF's grades last season. Quentin Nelson needs a bounce back. Kelly, when he's healthy, is pretty good. Fries is the weakest of the bunch. Smith is a really good player. Woods is not a starting capable tight end, in my opinion. Jonathan Taylor, I still added to the depth chart just in case. I still think he'll be a Colt this season, and if you were wondering what my answer is to that, that's my answer. I think Jonathan Taylor will be the starter. Hull has shown some promise in the preseason, but it could also be Zach Moss or even, I think it's Jackson is his name. Richardson at quarterback. Minshew is the backup if anything happens to Richardson, or if they just want a change up if Richardson isn't playing well. But I think this year on offense is all about the development of Richardson, finding what works with him, finding what doesn't work with him, and building off of that. Michael Pittman and Pierce are a pretty good receiver duo, I will say, and Taylor's a good running back. Other than that, everything else is kind of mediocre or not very good. Defensively, safeties, I think one of the weakest duos in football, in my opinion. Blackman has been hit and miss throughout his career, but has some promise. The corner position is one of the worst as well, with rookie Brents, Flowers. Moore is a good player, didn't have his best year last year at the nickel spot. We'll see what Brents is as a rookie. I love the linebacker duo, even without Okereke, I can't say his name. He is gone to the Giants, but I love speed. I really like speed. Big fan of him. And Darius Leonard is one of the best linebackers in football when he's healthy. The matter is he healthy? A defensive line is pretty solid. Nothing special on the edges. Like I said, love the duo inside. Think Grover Stewart's one of the most underrated defensive linemen in football, and DeForest Buckner is a monster that every team will be double teaming. So the Colts, I think you can see, have a lot of weaknesses on offense and defense. I think they're pretty clear, and that's why their roster didn't rank as high as I would have thought it would, because they have some really good players. Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith. You go to defense, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, but they don't have a lot of consistency throughout the lineup. So looking at their record this year, I think it's going to be a struggle for the Colts, honestly. I think they're going to win 4 or 5 games. I'll say 3 to 6 would probably be the logical solution here. Their floor is probably 3. I think their ceiling, and the reason their ceiling is so high is because if Richardson hits and he's really good, well, this team all of a sudden, if you have a dynamic quarterback that can run and pass, well, then all of a sudden the offense looks a lot better. You've got enough receiver talent to make it work. The defense, I think, can get by with the defensive front being pretty good and the linebacking core being good. So the ceiling is there for this team to compete for the division if everything goes well, but it's not likely. Like, I think the likely solution is about 3 to 6 wins this season. Richardson shows a roller coaster season as a young player in this league, and the rookie coach has some promising moments, has some down moments. I think I would lean towards the under 6.5 with the Colts. The Colts I have near the bottom of my AFC South power rankings / standings. I have them finishing 4th in the division. Next up, and the final team, is the Jacksonville Jags. If you guys have been watching this entire video, you would know that Jacksonville I have winning this division, which a lot of people do, and this is where I want to start. We have not seen expectations for the Jacksonville Jaguars at this rate, this high, in a very long time. I mean, it's been years since Jacksonville has had expectations like this. And I think the last time was probably 2018. You know, the year after Blake Bortles had his rise and the defense had their rise. Forget what that defense was called. If any Jacksonville fans can remind me what they called that defense in Jacksonville. But man, that was one of the best defenses I've ever seen in 2017. Leonard Fournette running over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Good times, good times. And then my Patriots coming back and winning the AFC Championship. But that's besides the point. Expectations, super high. Trevor Lawrence, MVP level expectations. Calvin Ridley coming to town. That has a really big spotlight on the offense this year. Fantasy circles love this team. Defensively, big question marks across the board. But nonetheless, this team is expected to win this division. It is a foregone conclusion for a lot of people that this team will win the division. It's a matter of how many games will they win. And that's what we're going to break down right now. So let's take a look at their rankings. Offensively, by far the best, most consistent offense in this division. And I think that's what really gives me the confidence that this team will repeat as the champions of this division. Because a lot of the other teams, I mean, we've seen it, don't have good offenses. Like, it's just a fact of the matter. The Tennessee Titans don't have a great offense. The Colts have a rookie quarterback. The Texans have a rookie quarterback. They don't have great talent. So, like, Jacksonville has the best offense by far. They have the best play caller in the division. They have the best quarterback in the division. They have the best receiving core in the division. The only thing they don't have offensively is, I guess you would say, the best running back, although they have a good running back. And then also the offensive line is kind of hit and miss. But overall, QB7 for Trevor Lawrence, just above Aaron Rodgers, who I had as the QB8. That's quite high for a guy that has had one good year and is only, I think, won 12 games. But I was just really impressed by his second half of the season. I think that will trend forward and continue this year. Coaching rank is 8th. Doug Peterson, love him. I've always really been a fan of Doug Peterson. He beat my team in the Super Bowl. I have a ton of respect for him. If you can do that, man, you can beat the Patriots and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl. You're a pretty good coach. And he can, I think that one season after that doesn't get talked about, they went, I think, 9-7 with Nick Foles again. And he just turned that team around like crazy. So he's a great coach and a very smart offensive guy as well. Offensive line, they're not a very good offensive line. That could be the weakness of this offense. If this offense underwhelms, it's because of the offensive line. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Offense, I have ranking 7th. I do think they'll be a good offense. I do think they'll rank inside the top 10. I think they have so many ways to attack you. Trevor Lawrence's arm, Trevor Lawrence's legs. They got Travis Etienne. They got Tank Bigsby now. They've got JaMychal Hasty in the backfield as well. But then they also have the move tight end of Evan Ingram, Calvin Ridley on the outside, Christian Kirk on the inside. A lot of different layers to this offense that I like. Roster rank was a little lower than I would have expected at 23. I think because a lot of the young players that are unproven don't really rank high in my system. Secondary rank, 25th. I think they have a really good corner duo. The rest of it is kind of suspect. Defensive line rank, I wish they would have improved it. Defensive rank, 24th. I wish they would have improved their defense this year. A lot of what their defense is counting on is young players getting better, which is fair, but I mean, if you're trying to really be a contender, you're trying to go and just make that play. And if I was Jacksonville, I would have pushed to sign some big name free agents. I would have tried to make a big trade, do something big defensively to really make a difference. But looking at the offense, you know the rest of the guys are good. I mean, Zay Jones is the number 3 receiver, pretty decent number 3. Kirk's the number 2, who he had 1,000 yards last year as their number 1. So Ridley, I think, is going to have a great year. I've always been a Calvin Ridley fan. He dealt with some off-the-field issues in terms of mental, but I think he's back. He's ready. He looks awesome in all the clips I see. The offensive line is suspect, though. You've got 2 really young tackles that have never played in the NFL before. Cam Robinson right now is suspended. Fortner is not a very good player. Barch isn't a great player. Scherf is declining. So this offensive line could be a problem against good pass rushes. And that's what I would expect overall. But I would expect Peterson to mostly scheme around it with screen game, RPOs, and do as much as he can to scheme around a bad offensive line to start with. Then you've got the defense. Oluokun is a standout for me. He is one of the best linebackers, one of the most fun guys to watch in football, an absolute tackling machine. Tyson Campbell is a standout at corner, absolute stud, one of the 10 best corners in football. Love how they match him up with the best receivers in football and get him to play man. And then Josh Allen is a beast off the edge, can do everything well. I thought Darius Williams played really well once they moved him outside to corner 2, and I expect that duo to be really solid on the outside. Andre Sisco is a guy I would watch out for as a breakout. Rashawn Jenkins is solid at safety. Like, their safeties aren't bad, but they're not spectacular. I think Sisco needs to break out. Trey Herndon is by far, you star him when you play against him. He's their worst guy on the defense. The defensive linemen on the inside aren't bad. Hamilton could maybe take another jump this year. Trayvon Walker in year 2, you would expect good things. Devin Lloyd was really bad last year. Hopefully he can play better. But that's the defense of Jacksonville. I think, again, you look at it. Campbell's young. Walker's young. Hamilton's young. Allen is still kind of young, even though he's kind of a for sure thing now. Oluokun is not that old, but Lloyd is young. Sisco's young. So all these guys could get better. Some of them maybe could regress, but I feel like they could get better and make this unit a lot better. I'm a little concerned about the defense when it comes to playing like the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Bengals and all the best offenses in the AFC. But at the same time, against like mediocre offenses and mediocre teams, I feel like they'll be fine. Okay, so my record is 11-6 for Jacksonville. I think they win the division. I think they win it by 3 games. Although I could see them winning 9 or 10 again if they underwhelm on the offensive line and the defense. And I think Tennessee could compete with them if that happens. But their ceiling is immense. If their offensive line can figure it out and their defense can get better and these young guys can improve and Trayvon Walker can really form a tandem with Josh Allen and they've got a great corner duo, well then now we're talking. Trevor Lawrence hits MVP levels. They could be a 13-4 type of team. With the schedule they have, they can really take advantage of it. The floor is 8-9. I think with their division and their schedule, I don't think the floor is that low. Like, I don't think they have a super low floor, even though they're a little bit of a question mark type of team. And I would bet the over if I was a betting man, which I am. I would go over 9.5. I have confidence in Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. I think that's a great combination of quarterback and coach to give you stability. And that's what Jacksonville has been missing, is stability. And I think Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson give you that. Despite whatever else is around them, I think that's what they'll give you in the future. So there it is, guys. My AFC South preview. Now, my final standings, 11-6 for Jacksonville, making the playoffs as the number 4 seed, I believe. Tennessee at 8-9, missing the playoffs, but being a competitive, good, above average team. The Houston Texans being the 3rd place team at 5-12 and finally having a respectable year. The Indianapolis Colts having a down year and a transition year at 4-13. There it is, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more BLV NFL division previews just like this. We'll see you in the next one. It's Mitch. Peace.